And hello, Hearts of Oak. Thanks so much for joining us once again. And it is great to have, I've certainly seen a lot in this fight to gather information on what's been happening over the last 5 years, a stalwart in the alternative media scene here in the UK. And that is Jim Ferguson. Jim, really appreciate you giving us your time. Thank you so much.
An absolute pleasure to be here with you, Peter. And thanks for having me.
Always good to have someone who you really connect with, but you see from afar. So I feel as though I know you. So it's always good. Thank you so much. And at Jim Ferguson UK is the X handle there on your screen. Make sure and make use of that. All the other links are in the description. But Jimmy, your background, businessman, entrepreneur, you become a political commentator or a commentator on all things in terms of the deep state or I think you call it globalist control, all kind of connects. You obviously stood for the Brexit Party. Was 2019? Did you stand for them?
Yes, so I joined the Brexit Party in May of 2019. I went down to the launch in Coventry to see what it was really all about and got recruited actually when I was at the launch itself. Yeah.
So beware. I've heard the same story from others. Beware of going to political events. You may get to stand in an election. But maybe, Jim, you could give us a little bit of your background. We will jump in and talk a little bit more about Advance UK, but me touch on your background and then maybe, I guess, what then possesses you to stand for a political party? I was 5 years in UKIP, stood at all different elections, and I don't know whether I'd recommend anyone go through that. But yeah, just touch on your background and then what kind of made you decide, yes, I do want to stand and put my efforts into a political engagement.
Sure. Well, I mean, my background is in business, been in business a long time, buying companies, selling companies, building them up, launching new projects. Did that for a long time. When I went down to the Brexit Party launch in Coventry, it was really just to see what it was all about. I had no intentions of becoming political at that point, but I did get recruited into it. In fact, I got very heavily recruited into the Brexit Party. And during that very, very intense 6 months, I got recruited deeply into it. So I was working out of HQ in London, traveling all over the country. And I was also interviewing and carrying out background screening and vetting for other prospective parliamentary candidates as well. So, yeah, I have a big interest in what's going on in the world as well as the United Kingdom. And I did a lot of campaigning. In fact, when the dust had settled, after all the counts were done at the end of the general election in December of 2019, myself and my colleague in Barnsley Central and Barnsley East, which was my seat, actually came first and second in the entire country. We came the closest to winning our seats. We were up against Labour candidates that had very, very large Labour majorities, 14,000 majority, 12,000 majority. Well, we destroyed their majorities, but they still were able to hang on enough, thanks to the Conservatives who wouldn't stand down their candidate. So here we are. And of course, the pandemic hit in 2020 early. And I didn't post anything for a long time. I had a little X account, which I'd been asked to create from May to the December. I think it got to about 2,800 followers at that point. And I bought a little farm. So I dabble in farming and things as well. It's more of a lifestyle choice, to be honest. But I went back to that, kept myself busy putting up new fences, taking in animals, experimenting with different crossbreeds. Didn't really post anything. And then about 2 years after that, I happened to be out with the dogs and Twitter popped into my mind. And I thought, yeah, I should probably just get rid of the account. I'm not using it anymore because I was never really that active on social media. Went into the settings, went to the delete button, and then I thought, I wonder if there's anybody even still in there. And there actually were almost close to 2,000 people still following. So I thought, I'll go out and record a piece. Was going to delete it, but changed my mind at the last minute, and I just said something reasonably general in speaking. And then, to my surprise, the channel started to explode, and I got invited onto shows, went to the United States, and I was on stage across 8 different states speaking about all the things I speak about, from North Dakota all the way down to Alabama. And a lot of Canadians saw me speaking at those events. When I got back to London, I was invited over to Canada, and I met all the leaders of the Canadian Freedom Trucker Convoy, from Tamara Litch to Harold Juncker, Chris Barber, Eddie Cornell, Veterans for Freedom Canada. Great people. And I was so inspired that when I came back to London, I decided I would set up an international freedom movement, and reached out to a couple of business colleagues and said, look, this is what I'm looking to do. I'm just looking for some general advice. What do you think? And they said, well, it's a very ambitious project, but if anybody can do it, it would be you. So to my surprise, to a lot of people's surprise, Freedom Train International was born. It was launched in February 2024 on the anniversary of the Canadian Freedom Trucker Convoy movement. And we have now many, many thousands all around the world who watch in, tune into the live streams, who support us. And yeah, we're talking about freedom. We're talking about anti-censorship. We're talking about people having the ability to live free and independent lives. And of course, I was with Ben Habib in the Brexit Party as well. Ben Habib was a member of the European Parliament representing London. And I absolutely had huge respect, and still do, for Ben. He was very, very good to me in the party. When he went to Reform as deputy leader, I was very pleased because I never joined Reform. But I was pleased that he did. And I thought, well, maybe we're going to get some real traction here. That didn't work out. And of course, he launched AdvanceUK. And the funny thing is, Peter, I had arranged to go down to interview him at his offices about a week before he launched the party. And on the very day that he launched, I saw that happening. I joined. When I went in to interview him, I told him I had, and he was delighted. And he said, look, would you consider joining the AdvanceUK College, which will be setting policy, holding the executive to account? I agreed. And then I've been doing a lot of work in Europe over the course, in particular, the course of the last 5 to 6 months. And we can talk about that in more detail if you want. So he and his chief of staff asked if I would take on the additional role of international ambassador for AdvanceUK. And here we are. And yes, I was delighted to be at the launch in Newcastle just about a week or so ago. I was the warm-up act for Ben. And I have to say, it was a magnificent crowd, and it was great to see so many people there. It was very, very positive.
Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack there. Mick, just going back to, how do you end up, you don't just check your Twitter account and then you end up traveling across America and engage. How does that, that's a gap. How did you cross that gap?
So it started off with me getting invited onto shows. People started to see me speaking out. And I was speaking out very powerfully against the lockdowns, against the pandemic mandates. And I felt very passionate about it. And of course, that got a lot of attention. I think I was in the right place at the right time. A lot of people in America saw it. A lot of people with very big accounts saw it. So from going from a fairly small account, I was getting a lot of traction. And then I found out that there was actually quite famous and well-known people that were following the channel. James Woods, the actor, Kim.com, generals in America, different people that were taking an interest. And yes, it was a good opportunity. I got to go to America. I was well received on stage. Being a Scottish Highlander, I took my kilt and my regalia with me. And I was on stage in my kilt. And of course, there's a lot of people in America that are of Irish and Scottish descent. So that was of huge interest to them. And I just think it caught people's imagination. It caught people's attention. And of course, when I put myself into something, I throw myself into it. I did that with Freedom Train International. So I didn't just suddenly decide to do it. I spent 15 months without launching anything, building up networks. I was on Zoom calls with people across America, North America, Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, solidly 8 Zoom calls per day, 7 days a week, reaching out to people, discussing things and learning a huge amount about what was going on in their countries. And the interesting thing, Peter, is I found out that what they were facing in their countries was actually very similar to what was going on in the UK, the uni-party system. So what I mean by that is, in the United Kingdom, we have the Conservative Party, we've got the Labour movement or the Labour Party. Sir Keir Hardie would be turning in his grave if he saw what Labour's become. Likewise, those that were in the Conservative movement wouldn't be happy with what they've seen either, because the Conservative Party is conservative in name only. And this is what's happening in Canada. This is what's happening in Australia, New Zealand, and many other nations across Europe. You've got fake parties who are globalists, and they are pushing forward this lockstep globalist movement that, quite frankly, isn't putting the interests of people first. It's putting the interests of the globalists first. And that is very, very true. So when I discovered all of that, I realized there was a real need to address this issue and ensure that politicians are held to account. When they get elected, they should be putting the interests of their people first. There's nothing wrong with working in partnership with other countries. And of course, a large part of what I'm doing is connecting with national leaders, and some of them are very, very senior leaders. For example, I was flown into Romania. I was asked to assist George Simeon, the presidential candidate for Romania. Great guy, absolutely loved him. We still keep in contact. I had a meeting just a matter of weeks ago with Marine Le Pen in France. Once again, a stalwart French patriot, somebody I have huge respect for. So that's the kind of work I'm doing. And that was an easy sort of fit for me coming into Advance UK. I've already been working quite extensively with politicians and business leaders across Europe and America. So I'm very happy to be in that role now. I'm not doing anything terribly different to what I've been doing these last 6 months to a year. But of course, I'm making sure that they know who Advance UK are. And I'm in a lot of groups, a lot of WhatsApp groups, a lot of networks. And people are taking an interest in what Ben is saying.
I want to get into Advance UK and the party conference season at the moment, your thoughts on that. But just one other thing, in terms of what you put out during the COVID tyranny that we saw, I guess, surveillance, you've got censorship, you've got free speech being curtailed, you've got these global entities appearing and making diktats, you've got all of that, you've got cultural erosion, mass immigration. I mean, when you look at all of that, I mean, what are your specific concerns? And I know you end up speaking of a range of so many issues, and you have to get up to speed on everything that's happening. But is there a particular one of those areas that you think actually this is the one that we need to win on, or else it's game over?
Yes, absolutely right, Peter. I think that there are a whole wide range, a multifaceted range of issues that are causing all sorts of problems. And I think really it all stems from this globalist ideology that they want a one world government that they control. And national sovereign countries that have strong patriotic identity are coming under attack, and they're using techniques like mass illegal immigration to cause division, to cause fear, to cause an erosion of what it means to be British, for example. I'm a Scottish Highlander, but I'm a proud Brit. I love my Irish and English and Welsh friends and fellow patriots. And I'm reminded about the struggles of World War I, World War II, where the Tommies and the Taffies and the Micks and the Jocks were all in the trenches fighting, all speaking different languages or variations of our cultural identity and our history, coming together and working together for a common cause, a common purpose, if you like, against a great evil that was being perpetrated against our country. And you know something, I see almost like a new Battle of Britain arising, except it's not just the UK. It's actually the entire world. Every country in Europe now is facing an existential crisis. But mass illegal immigration, of course, is a very destructive tool that the globalists are most definitely pushing. They've tried to mask it as, asylum seekers. They're not. They're young, illegal migrant men who are here, who are being encouraged to come here with free healthcare, free telephones, free cash handouts, and being put up in the best of hotels, whilst our military veterans, our old age pensioners, are left destitute. And that upsets me greatly. It really makes me very angry. And that's, I suppose, a catalyst for me becoming political again, because I didn't really intend to get involved in politics, but I feel that we have to step forward. We have to fight the good fight. And being part of Advance UK is a huge honour for me. It's a huge privilege. But I think from my perspective, all the people, and Ben is doing a great job in building that network and team around him, we're all motivated to do it for the country and for what we believe in.
Let's touch on then Advance UK more, and then one of your wider thoughts on the uni-party that we have seen in many shapes and forms here in the UK. But yeah, Advance UK, Ben, and the whole team have done a fantastic job in galvanizing support, and he has obviously said he wanted those 30,000 members to show there is support, and I think he's proved that point with people jumping on. I signed up early on also to be an Advance UK member because, well, why not? I like what Ben says. I like the idea. I'm not involved in it, but I can certainly play my part by being a member. But I think why you've got, when you talk to a lot of US contacts, they say, Nigel is the saviour. We've got reform. Isn't this wonderful? He's going to be Prime Minister. And I'm thinking, well, let me just stop you a moment. You probably have the same conversations. How do those conversations go to, I guess, those in the MAGA that see Nigel as the Messiah?
Well, up until the launch of Advance UK, that was very much the case. They saw reform as being the solution, as being the party of the people, as opposed to the Conservatives and Labour. That is changing. And one of the biggest factors in that is Elon Musk, who has been in direct contact and is in direct contact with Ben Habib. He has publicly supported and endorsed Advance UK, and of course Tommy Robinson as well, a very high-profile figure with a lot of support around the world. And what is now starting to happen, and I've been doing this a lot with my contacts in America, in Europe, and other places, is to say, look, there is actually another alternative here. This is what real patriots do. This is what real patriots are saying. And the problem with Reform UK, and it's a very important point when you compare the two, it took Reform 5 years to get 30,000 members. When Ben launched the party, he achieved 30,000 members in about 11 weeks. And indeed, that's gone far in excess of 30,000 now. I think that it's heading towards 40,000 members as we speak just now. So there is a real evidence that people are saying, well, Nigel actually isn't the saviour. And of course, there's been interviews where he's said, oh, well, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but basically saying, well, there's nothing we can do about all these mass illegal immigrants. We can't deport them. We can't do anything about it. That has upset his base. And of course, the other thing is Rupert Lowe. A lot of people didn't like what happened to Rupert Lowe, who was a member of Parliament with Reform UK. He had the dirty done on him, really. And I think a lot of people weren't happy about the dirty tricks that were being employed by Reform to target him. And of course, Howard Cox, the London mayoral candidate, once again, there's so many examples where the grassroots and those that were standing didn't get the support. And if they spoke out too much against the sort of the policies, or they spoke out too much on mass illegal immigration or these other issues, they were often just thrown out the party. When Ben Habib was deputy leader of Reform UK and tried to get Reform to reform, he was then banned from speaking to the grassroots members. That's not how democracy works. So I think there's a real awakening to the fact that actually Ben Habib may very well be the next Prime Minister. I think the wheels have come off Reform. Just simply because of the things they're now saying. They seem to be pandering to the Conservatives. They're trying to sort of go to the middle ground, and they are ostracizing a lot of their grassroots people. But what's happening in America is they're looking at this now and they're saying, well, actually, Reform doesn't really align with us. Let me give you a good example, Peter. When Donald Trump said before being elected, because I was there in Washington, D.C., I had an interview with Senator Ron Johnson at that point, and I said, what's the very first thing when Trump gets elected that you want him to do? And without hesitation, he said, illegal immigration, the southern border's got to be sealed, because he said all these other problems are stemming from that. Donald Trump has kept his election promises, and he has sealed the border. He has gone with ICE and federal authorities to really target the dangerous migrants who have come into the country, and there are millions. But Nigel says we can't do that. We couldn't have deportations. We can't get rid of these people. Well, that's a direct contrast to what Donald Trump is doing and saying and what he thinks. So when you see people like Elon Musk, who is still very much in close contact with Donald Trump, although they had that bit of a public spat, I think it looks like they're back on speaking terms again, which is great because I love both of these guys. But people in America are saying, well, actually, Advance UK are talking our language. The patriots in Europe, of which I know many of them, are saying, well, actually, Advance UK are very much aligned with our way of thinking. So what's so important in all of this is that we build those networks. We have our friends in Europe. We have our friends in America, Australia, New Zealand, and all other countries around the world. And that we are understanding that we are all speaking a very common language. It's called the patriot language. We are against mass illegal immigration, the erosion of our national identity, our culture, our history. And we are uniting together because unity is strength.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of points that made me think. One was when Richard Tice was being interviewed and they were talking about all the parties in Europe, the rise of populist parties, and they said the AfD and the FPO in Austria, and Marine Le Pen doing. And Tice said, oh, no, we're very different. We're very different. And that was, why are you distancing yourself from parties that you really should align with? And I think the other one was when Nigel was asked about sending people back. And that kind of spat with Rupert Lowe. Rupert said, line the planes up and send it back. And Nigel seemed to not do that. And I think those two have stuck in my mind to make me realize, if I didn't realize before, that actually Reform want to just be careful. They just want to tread the middle. They're not about actually doing what's right. And I don't know if you had similar kind of things that happened that gave you that wake up.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about it as well. And I think it's about trust. It's about confidence in whoever's going to go into number 10, because it's not going to be Starmer. He's going to lose. And the Conservatives are probably going to lose. I mean, look, they are completely different to what they used to be. They are globalists and they're infiltrated with globalists. And when I see all these Conservative members of Parliament or councillors starting to flood into Reform, what that tells me is that they see Reform as just another version of the globalist movement. And I think people, when they look back at the COVID mandates, Tice's position on vaccines, telling people that they can't fly unless they're vaccinated, that's a real red flag to a lot of us. And I think what Ben's position is very, very clear. He's against all of that. He's also said publicly at the Newcastle launch, especially when it comes to digital ID, and central bank digital currencies, he's taken a very firm stand on this. He's saying anything that the Starmer government have put into place, we will undo as soon as we get into government. There will, if they introduce mandates for digital ID, they will be repealed, they will be overturned and got rid of, and immediate deportations will happen. Those people who are here, who have criminal records, who are dangerous, they will be gone literally within days. And we will not be neutered by things like the ECHR and these sort of smoke screens that the Conservatives hid behind for 15 years, that the Labour Party hide behind. Oh, well, we can't deport, ECHR rules. Well, I thought we left Europe. I thought that's what Brexit was all about. The reality is that they let it slide, but then again, they made it very clear, and I've reported on this, that when it comes to military and defence and our intelligence services and our policing, Europe still has control over that, and that's why we're sliding into ever greater union in terms of military command structures. It's very dangerous, and I think when we get into power, when Ben is Prime Minister, there will be a real accounting taking place. The civil service also will be held to account. There will be no more civil servants in senior executive positions dictating policy. And a lot of people don't realise this, but it's civil servants that run the British military right now. It's not the generals. Tony Blair put that into place when he was in as Prime Minister. So there's a lot of work to be done. Those of us that are getting involved realise the enormous task that's ahead of us to turn this ship around and make Britain great again. But we are doing it in partnership. And our American friends are seeing what we're saying. Elon Musk is seeing what we're saying. He's reposting what I'm saying. He's reposting what AdvanceUK are doing. And this is a huge, huge factor in all of this. This whole concept that Nigel Farage is the Messiah is fake. He isn't. And he won't do what is needed for the British people. But AdvanceUK most certainly will. And that's why so many people, great influencers, people like yourself, Peter, have joined and are joining in droves. And every day, almost every day, certainly every week, we see very high-profile people like Professor Norman Fenton becoming AdvanceUK College members. So people are starting to go, wait a minute, I like what Ben Habib is saying, I like what Advance is saying, and those of us within the AdvanceUK College that will be setting policy have already started that work. We're already building it. And I think that's the key difference here. When we say we're going to do something, it will be done.
No, I agree. And Professor Norman Fenton is a wonderful individual, been known many times and a speaker of truth. And I think when you said about Ben Habib becoming PM, I echo that. You never know what politics throws up, but I don't think that's a pipe dream. I think actually the people jumping in and being involved and signing up with AdvanceUK, that electoral college bringing so many together of key figures. I think what you've done, and I think sometimes maybe in the media space, we are there driving the agenda. We are there engaging with the public. We are there answering questions. We're giving news that they don't get elsewhere. But with you going back into politics, it shows that you actually need a political solution. And as great as the media side is, it has to go hand in hand with the politics. Maybe speak into that, because podcasts are not going to win the UK. It's part of that partnership. But we need a political change, because it's not politics. The solution is revolution. I don't think any of us are calling for that, because it's messy, very messy.
Well, interestingly enough, Professor David Betts has been, I don't know if you've interviewed him. I'm planning to reach out to him. I haven't done it yet. But Professor David Betts is an academic who has been highlighting the dangers and the occurrences and the consequences of mass illegal immigration in the United Kingdom. He's advised cabinet ministers on this, and he's warning that there could be a form of civil war taking place. He calls it a dirty war, where regions will become factionalized, no-go areas will exist. There could be extreme violence. Now, this isn't a man who is, a podcaster. He's not the kind of person who even, and he's admitted this, he's not really that comfortable in front of a camera. He's doing it because he feels people need to be warned about what's coming. The government policy needs to be set. And when I actually started to look into him, I found out that he was actually already following me on my X channel. So I followed him back, and I do intend to reach out to him. Going back to your earlier points, nobody wants a revolution, because revolutions are bloody, they're messy, and once that happens, people get hurt. And we don't want to see that. There has to be a political solution to all of this. And if enough of you people in the United Kingdom actually listen to what Ben is saying and find out what he's talking about and the policies that are going to come from those of us within AdvanceUK College, it's inevitable that they're going to say, well, this is for us, this is what we want. And the problem with reform, when you compare AdvanceUK and reform, is they don't have a structure. They've got a 2 or 3 or a handful of people setting policy, making the decisions. In the interview that I talked about at the very start, when I interviewed Ben and I was talking to him about AdvanceUK College, he says, look, if I don't do my job, AdvanceUK will sack me. He says, Jim, you might have to sack me at some future point, which I would hate. I wouldn't want to do that. And I said to him, I'm sure that will never have to happen, because you're a man of integrity. The people trust you. I trust you. And when people have said to me, but Jim, can we really trust Ben Habib? My answer is, you can trust Ben Habib 100%. I know him. I've worked with him in the Brexit Party. I've known him for years. Yes, you can trust Ben Habib and AdvanceUK 100%. And those of us who are involved, people like yourself, people in podcasters and media, are joining in droves. when you talk about that sort of messaging, as has often been said, we are the media now. Not the BBC, not Sky News, and I have to say even GB News. We are the media now. We, between us, are getting more likes, more shares, more metrics than some of these big news stations. So we don't trust the mainstream media. And indeed, there wasn't a single person, as far as I'm aware. I think GB News might have had a couple of journalists there at our launch. Nobody else did. And when you look at GB News in general, it's almost like the Nigel Farage show. They actually stopped Ben Habib from coming on the show. Why? Well, perhaps because deals are being done. But it won't stop us. And X is an incredibly powerful platform. YouTube is very good, of course, as well, for a lot of the kind of content that is going out on there. So we are the media now. And I think with the assistance of Elon Musk, it's publicly endorsing and supporting Ben Habib and AdvanceUK, I think all bets are off. Ben Habib could be at number 10. And those of us that support him, whether we stand as individuals or not, and I don't know if I'll ever stand actually as a member of parliament, but I'll do, and I've said this to Ben as chief of staff, I've said to those around him, I'll do whatever you want me to do, in whatever capacity you want, because this is for the country, this is for the British people, this is for the wider international community, those of us who believe and are passionate about what it means to be a patriot are rising. There is a new force rising now in British politics. It's Ben Habib and AdvanceUK. And I really wholeheartedly support him, because this is about Britain. This is about turning that ship around and getting it back to where it needs to be.
No, it is, and I think I parted ways with GB News when Mark Stein was got rid of, and of course they didn't want to talk about that. Nigel very much pro big pharma, pro do it you're told, and it's an honour to share the GB band list along with Ben and Tommy and many others. But tell us a little bit about up there in Newcastle. It's been a while since I was at a party conference, and I guess UKIP was easier, like the Brexit Party was easier because it was around a single issue. And what Ben is trying to do, which isn't easy, is pulling together a populist grouping, a fairly conservative view of the world we are in and preserving the best of our society and culture. But maybe fill us in a little bit about being up at that party conference, at the launch, in effect, of AdvanceUK now. The papers have gone into the Electoral Commission, all of that. What was it like to engage? Because I think often we do things online, and it is always good to be in a room with like-minded patriots, engage with them, look them in the eyes, and share your concerns on how we actually win the nation back again.
Well, the launch took place on the Saturday, of course, on the 27th. And what was interesting is that 2 days before the party launch, we had booked a hotel. And that hotel, it turned out, had gone into administration. They were actually sort of being managed by the local Labour Council. When they heard it was AdvanceUK that had booked it, they cancelled the event 2 days before the launch. Now, this is the typical dirty tricks.
Right, Doug. I mean, that's probably their life. It couldn't be further from the truth.
It couldn't be further from the truth. It's like Clinton talking about the deplorables in America. Wear it like a badge of honour, Ben is one of the most decent, hard-working British patriots you could imagine. And if you ever get to know him, if you ever get the opportunity, and I know you have, but I'm talking more sort of for the audience, you can't help but like Ben. He's a very, very talented guy, but he's also a very likable kind of guy. When you meet him, he's not the kind of person that thinks he's better than anybody else. He's actually very grounded. But when they cancelled the event 2 days before the launch, all those that were organising it were we've got to find another venue. It's got to go ahead. They worked incredibly hard. I pay tribute to those who did that. They did an amazing job, and of course found a good venue. It was actually a great venue. It was easy to secure. There was a great security team there on the day. I was talking extensively to them. Great bunch of people, very professional in what they were doing. And the actual launch itself, because there was a worry that having cancelled the hotel, would enough people come? Well, I think we counted about 600 people, all packed in. It was standing room only. And yes, going back to your point, it's wonderful to actually meet people in person. There was other podcasters there. There was other people that I've spoken with that were there covering it. And of course, there was people there that knew who I was. They were followers of my show. They knew who I was. They'd followed my position on the anti sort of vaccine COVID pandemic mandates and all the kind of things that were going on with mRNA technology. But also there were people that knew me from my Brexit Party days. And they said, "Oh, Jim, it's great to see you that you've joined Advance." Now, of course, it was reciprocal. I was delighted to see them there. So when I was the warm-up act, I was the first to speak. And I spoke with the people, not to them, because I understand that they were there in their hundreds, despite the difficulties, despite the change of venue, the cancellation of our venue, despite the dirty tricks. And if anything, it made them even more determined. There were people from America who had come there specifically for this launch. There was people from the Scottish Highlands who were down and other parts of Scotland. There was about, I can't remember how many, there was dozens of people who came and introduced themselves who were Scottish. I was actually quite surprised but delighted. And of course, Newcastle is a great culture, a great history. It's not the first time I've been to Newcastle. So it was a good place to have it. If you go back in history to the steel making, the backbone, the hard working classes, well, Newcastle played a huge role in Britain becoming great. So that launch was pivotal. And getting people together to hear and to meet, and of course, Ben was like a rock star there after the end of the speeches. There were queues of people to come in to shake his hand, to speak to him. And of course, there was a lot of people. We were all supporting Ben. A lot of people came up and speaking to me and the others who were there speaking as well. There was a great panel, actually, of speakers. So it was a great privilege for me to open up the show. But I think, when you see people in the flesh, that's where real connections are made. Zoom and StreamYard and online is great. And of course, we all use that every single day. But it's great to actually get people together. And there was an energy, Peter, that there was a real energy in that room. I detected it even before the place filled up. It just felt right. And maybe the Labour-run council did us a favour by doing what they did, because it just goes to show one thing. It shows their dirty tricks. It also shows they're worried about Advance UK. And there were other marches taking place. There was a big contingent of Palestinian Hamas supporting, flag-waving, green-haired maniacs further up the street. But I've got to say, pay tribute to the police in Newcastle. They did a good job. They kept them very much away from our venue. So I think going forward, unity is our key thing here. We need to talk with and reach out to those people that feel very similar to what we feel and say, look, Advance UK could very well be the party that gets into government. Don't think for 1 minute that it's Nigel Farage. It's not about Nigel. It's about Britain. It's not about any one individual, although I would argue that Nigel Farage is Reform UK and Reform UK is Nigel Farage and Mr. Mohammed, of course, who's the double act. I don't believe they're the answer. I really don't. And I'll take nothing away from Nigel. He's a great orator. He's a great, speech deliverer. But there's too much at stake for party political personalities. The cult, the following that's grown around him is dangerous. It's not about any individuals. It's about saving the country. It's about saving Britain. And the existential threat that we face due to mass illegal immigration and all the things around it, the lack of hospital beds, the erosion of our education, the problems that we're facing, our streets, the potholes, the whole country is in a real mess. So from those sort of council, local government issues to the very top of policy being set by the Prime Minister in number 10, the whole thing needs a complete shake-up. Ben Habib and those around him will ensure that happens. And whatever position I end up in the future, I've got Ben's back 100% of the way, and he knows that. And I think the people that know me, when I speak, I say what I mean, and I mean exactly what I say.
And I love the way you gave you called the chairman of Reform by his proper first name, which is Mohammed, which is a whole other conversation. But I'll not get into that. Just to finish off, I think that I see Ben as a conviction politician. He believes what he wants to do. He's got a vision and does it, where Nigel seems to be very much focus groups and find out what people think and to go along. Ben seems to be a leader. Nigel has led in many ways, but seems to also be a follower of public opinion. And how that fits into the party political season we've just had. We'll just good to have your thoughts. And I used to love watching party political conference season. I used to actually sit at home and watch it growing up. Now, it's the last thing I would want to do. And sometimes you flick through over the last few days and you're thinking, could this be any duller? And I don't think it could be. But what are your thoughts on the conference season? To me, it just exemplifies and shows why Advance UK is so needed.
Well, the reason those political conferences are so boring is because there's no leadership there. They are administrators. They are global World Economic Forum appointed administrators. They're not leaders. Whereas Ben Habib is. You can't spend 2 or 3 minutes with Ben and not come away with the point that this is a guy who really is a leader. One of the things early on in the Brexit Party that I noticed about Ben was when I was in London, I'd be walking down different corridors or wherever we were operating from. Whenever Ben was walking in the opposite direction towards me, he would actually stop and he'd say, "Hey, Jim, how are you getting on?" He knew my name. He remembered my name. And he took an interest. And I'm sure he did it with other people as well. It wouldn't have just been me. That is the hallmarks of somebody who cares, somebody who's taking an interest in things beyond themselves. And I didn't find that with others when I was in Brexit Party. I mean, there were other great people there, and I had huge respect for them. But Ben Habib stood out, and that was why I've kept in contact with him. So I think what we're witnessing here is real leadership on show, somebody that comes across as being a real person. Now, Ben is a very successful London businessman, but his feet are firmly on the ground. He doesn't consider himself to be superior or above everybody else. And there is a real lack of arrogance with Ben Habib. He can talk to anyone. He can talk to a nurse or a doctor or a frontline council worker, a road sweeper, a construction worker, and he would have something to say and he would know the kind of challenges that they're facing. He could talk to the police. He can talk to anyone, as most of us can, and find that common ground that actually builds relationships and builds trust. And trust in politics is at an all-time rock-bottom low. And those conferences, those political conferences, are staged, managed smokescreens. They won't say what the people really want to hear because they don't want to upset the apple cart, or they don't want to upset, probably more importantly, their globalist handlers. You won't find that with Advance UK. We say what we think, and we mean exactly what we say. And when we say we're going to do something, you better believe it. You know, if Ben gets in as Prime Minister, he's going to build a cabinet around him. He's going to have a people that are around him that are absolutely determined to get the country back on track, no matter what it takes, peacefully. But there will be no quarter given to civil servants who think they can dictate to government ministers or cabinet ministers. It's not going to happen. They will do what we tell them to do, or they will be gone. And I make no apologies for that. There is too much at stake for soft-soaping people. There is too much at stake for nonsense. We face an existential crisis in this country, and it's going to take real leadership, powerful leadership, to sort this out. And anybody that gets in the way of turning this around will be dealt with. They will lose their jobs. There will be carnage for anyone in the civil service who thinks that they can dictate what's going to happen to us. It's not going to happen.
Ben, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I echo what you say about Ben, and encourage the viewers and listeners to play their part, jump on and become a member of Advance UK. You haven't really got much to lose. But I think Ben brings that connection with people. He is a leader, not because of the showbiz, the flash bang that Nigel brings. Ben is a leader because he listens to people, he cares about people, he engages with people. And you're right, he is fun to be with as an individual, but he is focused on the mission, and a very different type of leader than maybe we've seen elsewhere. But Ben, appreciate our Jim. Always good to have someone on and followed your work from afar. So thanks for giving us your time today.
Well, Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure being on with you. Thank you for having me on your wonderful show, and I pay tribute to the great work that you're doing. I've been following your work for a long time, so it's a real honour for me to be here with you. Thank you so much indeed.